Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Psychology Nook. I'm Sneha, the founder.
And I'm Manali, the co-founder of Psychology Nook. We have seen and read a lot about various roles of fields like economics, sociology, environmental science, and many such in their contribution when it comes to conservation of our resources and the effort of maintaining the balance between nature and the mankind. Today, we are going to discuss the role of psychology in this conservation. So, our topic today is going to be conservation psychology.
So, today's guest is a very close friend of mine. Her name is Prachi Paranspe, and she's a conservation psychologist working with WCT, that is, the Wildlife Conservation Trust, which is based in Mumbai. She has a master's degree with a specialization in social psychology, and she's worked as a camp instructor for 6 years before her master's. What she's done is she's combined two of her passions, forests and understanding group behavior, and she's brought them together in her job. She's a feminist, she's a plant lover, and she's a closet book reader. So why don't we just add her in? Hi, Prachi. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of our series. Let's discuss.
Hi.
Hi, Monali and Sneha. Thank you so much for having me here.
It's our pleasure. So, Prachi, we gave a small introduction about what you do. You're a conservation psychologist. Could you tell us a little more about conservation psychology and also how it's different from environmental psychology?
Okay, yeah. So basically, conservation psychology and environmental psychology are usually misunderstood as the same fields. But the difference is that environmental psychology studies the interaction between humans and their surroundings. So it involves literally everything, like basic college and office that you go to, and the it also involves a lot of things related to pollution and other things are also a part of environmental psychology, whereas conservation psychology studies human and their interaction with the nature, like plants and everything, that there is a part of the ecosystem, forest and everything. So the the interaction between human and the nature is studied in conservation psychology.
Okay, so basically the relationship between the two.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So, Prachi, you've done your master's in social psychology, right? Yeah. So, for our
Yeah.
audience, social psychology is a study of human behavior and individuals' behavior in regards to the society that he's present in, the influence of the society, and such. Okay. In short, that's what it is. So, Prachi, can you tell me that how did this specialization become a contributing factor in becoming a conservation psychologist?
Yeah. So basically, the sort of I do two projects in at WCT. One is basically understanding human behavior of communities who live around forest. And when it comes to psychology, a lot of our theories, a lot of our education that we get is therapy oriented, where primarily a lot of things that we learn is one person centric, whereas social psychology helps us understand the underlying effects of that person's behavior.
Right.
Like so primarily a lot of things that we study are around therapy, or how you are basically going to help a company increase their business. So it's either industrial psychology or it's either therapy based. So
Yeah.
as Sneha knows that I have been interested in the group and the norms and how these things affect from the very beginning.
Right.
So my training in social psychology helps me understand the entire community as a whole, where I'm not looking at one person, or when I'm not only understanding that one person, because at the end of it, whatever my work is, it's going to get affected by an entire group and not just by one person. So
Yeah.
that's how my training in social psychology helps in this part of my project a lot.
Okay.
And also in my other part where I work with the forest officers, it definitely helps because social psychology is literally everywhere. The basic things about norms and group behavior, it just helps me understand things on a more wholesome perspective.
That seems like a very necessary aspect of psychology when it comes to, like you mentioned, in conservation psychology, to for a person to know and understand more in that field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. I think social psychology is also super important when it comes to your research. I think it's one of the most underrated field of psychology in our country, which is a problem because a lot of things that are happening currently, which I will refrain from talking about, but a lot of things that are happening currently, it will give us like understanding of social psychology or application of these theories is going to help us understand the situations better, is what I feel.
Right, that makes sense. So basically, this entire understanding the group behavior or understanding the community, does this work both in urban settings and in rural settings, or is there like a difference between the two?
It absolutely works in urban and rural setting both ways, but the perk of rural uh, the ease in rural setting is that people are more trustworthy, like they trust people easily than in urban setting.
Yeah.
So you can see it more clearly there, but it's
Mhm.
definitely present in rural and urban both, and it helps equally in both the settings.
Okay, so your work mainly consists of field work and research, from what I understand. So, what are the different types of tasks, or maybe the different type of problems that you actually tackle?
So it started, I think I'll give you a little bit of background about this so I can introduce the work that I do right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was a research fellow under Dr. Vivek Belhekar during my masters, where I
Mm-hmm.
started. I was a research fellow with him on the same project. So as a student, I used to do the like similar kind of work back in the masters, and it was in collaboration with Wildlife Conservation Trust.
Mm-hmm.
So we would work on two things. One was one aim that we had was reduction in firewood consumption of communities who live around protected areas or
Mm-hmm.
forests, both. So that is important because we they like their daily consumption of firewood is a lot, and they depend on firewood for cooking and water heating both, which
Mm-hmm.
may seem like very little from now, but I like it's a lot of firewood consumption, and which has led to a lot of forest degradation.
Right.
So that was one project, and another one that I am still working on is understanding work motivation of forest guards,
Mm-hmm.
because they are the frontline workers and they protect our forests.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
these were the two projects that I was working on. And so it used to be whenever I would get a off from Mumbai University, which was a rarity, but during that off I would go to the forest with Vivek sir, and we would collect data and come back. And in my fourth semester, Vivek sir introduced the first ever course in the country,
Mm-hmm.
probably in the world, but definitely in the country, on conservation psychology,
Wow.
where he would teach everything that was everything that was database which he himself had collected, and the research that he had done. So it was basically like an ideal situation for all the students, where the professor is
Mm-hmm.
like, "Yay, this is what I have collected, and this is what it is, and this is how I'm going to analyze it, and this is what
Yeah.
happens." So it was uh, perfect course. So then I joined Wildlife Conservation Trust, and as a research fellow, it was different. Like it was not as intense because I was obviously a full-time student. But yeah, primarily our work is uh, field-based and data-based. So I would like to tell you a little bit about how our data-based work translates into the solutions or the recommendations that we are coming up with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So as I just shared about the firewood consumption project, so the government has a subsidy on LPG. So
Mm-hmm.
LPG is a subsidy that the government already gives. So it's a program that's working, which means after a certain amount of time, all the villagers will shift to using LPG. It will
Okay.
take some years, but it will happen. But the another big problem was water heating, and
Mm-hmm.
the villages where I work is around Tadoba, which is in Chandrapur,
Mhm.
central
Mm-hmm.
India, which
Mm-hmm.
means there is brutal winter.
Yes.
So you cannot have bath with room temperature water at all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they would heat water on the chulha,
Right.
So I stayed in the village. I collected a lot of their behavioral data along with a lot of economics data. And as Sneha knows, I also like a lot of qualitative work. So I would, and I'm also I like anthropology. So
Mhm.
I've stayed in the village myself for 3 days straight in their house
Mhm.
to understand how they use the how much firewood do they use.
Mm.
So I've stayed there, and so out from all of our data that we have collected, we analyzed the data and we came up with a solution that there needs to be an alternative to water heating. So, and this is central India. So how my another training in social psychology helps here is that understanding culture. So central India is a landscape where development is not as super fast as it is in the western ghats. So all of us living in Pune, Mumbai, we know that how developed the villages that we've seen are, and we visit Konkan so many times that we think that this is how the village is, but it's super different in central India.
Right.
So so what we found out was that there needs to be an alternative given to the villagers, and based on our data, we did a lot of we spoke to a lot of people that how can we give an alternative, and then we got the wood fire water heater, which is called bumber in Konkan. So we got an individual bumber made for the villagers, and here how it helps is that, so when I was with the data, I understood that it is towards an urban setting, like it's not a village setting. It's not how we think that tribal communities are going to be close knit and they're going to have a close equilibrium. So how it's changing nowadays helped me understand the whole situation, where it prompted us to know that in these villages, people are going to people prefer their independent chula, where they don't want a community setting,
Right.
which came out of our data.
Mhm.
And then we decided that giving them a community solar water heater is not going to help, because anything that is community based is doesn't have a long life, because you can't force something on them. So that's how and then we decided that, this is how like how they need individual things and how they need an alternative, and how to do the marketing of the whole product, because it's an alien product. It's like if I come to you and I tell you that you have to buy roti maker, I don't know what a roti maker is. I'm not going to invest that much money. So we did a lot of campaigning where my colleague, who's a developmental scientist, would go and actually show them how the bumper works. And the bumper was kept in the village so that people would come and see. So it was a long stretch process. And now now 30% of the villagers have already bought the bumper in spite of the lockdown. So in the lockdown, the process has stopped, and this whole thing was started in 2019. So uh, it's kind of a good thing that the villagers are getting an alternative to water heating, which has come out of our data.
Yeah, that's nice. That's quite I mean, it's such a different thing that you're doing, and at the same time it's helping those that that either don't have the resources, or they don't have those connections, or that awareness. This is I mean, a very you're playing a very vital role basically in all of this. It's quite cool.
And one of the amazing things about this is that the woman who is going to heat water is not very happy with the chula either, because it's a very tedious task, and it is time consuming. So the woman of the household is also happy. So it's not just for conservation, where I'm telling you ki I want to save the forest, so you use this. No, it's also for the convenience of the woman, which is a a very nice. Yeah.
So that's basically you are considering all aspects over here, not just the individual, but also the environment, also the society. So all factors are being considered when you come up with a plan with the current project. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Which is what helps in psychology, which is what we do, right? We understand the human to make the transition easy.
Exactly.
And not a very complex transition.
Exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
Okay. So, okay, so I remember while we were discussing about this video, you mentioned about some really bizarre myths about your work. I mean, you mentioned about people asking you if you can counsel and train tigers. So,
Yeah.
can you just shed some
Yeah.
light on some of these myths and what have you faced with?
Yeah. So, I've been an instructor for a really large chunk of my life, like adult life.
Mm.
So because I'm just an adult, so whatever. So a lot of my relatives would think that I go for a fun travel where I'm going to a forest and I'm basically going there as a camp instructor. So when I clarify that, saying no, I have a master's degree in psychology, so now I work there as a psychologist. I'm not taking children. So then they think, oh, so now you train tigers, so you counsel tigers. No, that's not what I do. And but something that has come close to understanding my work has been, so I also work with forest officers in understanding work motivation of forest guards. So
Yeah.
so that was a long project where we individually went to the forest and we conducted their interviews one on one, because it's a very sensitive data that they shared with us. So at that time also people thought, oh, so it's like a health camp where you are talking to guards about their trauma. I said it's okay, it's not as bizarre as counseling tigers, but yeah, okay, this is cool. And so one more myth that I saw was, so with the forest guard project, we are conducting human resource management training. So I would say that I'm going for a training in this forest. Like for example, I'm going for a training um, on these days for forest guards. So I've
Yeah.
also heard, so so are you training villagers and forest guards and tigers to not have a conflict? I said this is an interesting view, but that's not what I do.
Wow.
But do they understand, like once you tell them what you're actually doing, do they like finally come to an understanding of what actually it is, or is that difficult to do?
So I've stopped doing that because a lot of people have told me, oh, so this is like your, you know, pre-marriage fun job that you're doing. And they don't think that I have a job. They think it's a
Okay.
hobby that I'm doing side by side. And at some point, I'll actually have a proper job. So a lot of people tell me, oh, so what about your future? So I'm just like, yeah, this is what
My
I'm,
future.
yeah, so this is like, yeah, then they say, oh no, but what about your job? I said it's a full-time job. Then say, yeah, but what about when you get married? So now I've so now I don't explain. So whenever people ask me, I'm just like, yeah, you can think whatever you want to.
Yeah, you can see my work later.
Yeah,
Once the
Yeah.
results come,
exactly.
you can make another decision, whatever. Okay, so since concept, like coming from this, like the fact that people don't really understand what you do and they don't understand that this is a real job, and this is largely because conservation psychology is so new and it's such an upcoming field. Like you said, when we think about psychology, we either think about hospitals, clinics, therapy and all of that, or the corporate structure. um, and this is not something that really comes to mind, a psychologist in a forest, that's not something that comes to mind. So since it's so new and it's upcoming and it's emerging, and obviously it's going to go places in the next 5 to 10 years or the coming decades, not just in India but in the world, what are some goals that you hope that your field of conservation psychology will achieve in those coming years?
One thing that I genuinely hope that happens is in the policy making, area, psychology is considered, or a psychologist's analysis or a psychologist's recommendation is considered, because I firmly believe that using these recommendations that we find, like using these insights that we get from our data, if they're incorporated in the policies, then it's only going to get smoother in the
Yeah.
behavioral change, the transition, because development is super important. I'm not saying that as a city going person I cannot tell a person who lives around a protected area that, you know what, don't cut firewood, because my carbon footprint is always going to be much more than his carbon footprint.
Agreed.
So it's my only hope that in the policy, in the development plan, in the development program, this aspect is also considered, where you're not extracting too much from the environment and not letting the poor suffer either. It is a bridge that can be very well built. So this is my hope that uh, this is used in the coming future.
Yeah.
That's really great. That's amazing, and I didn't know that there is so much to do and so much psychology can actually contribute when it comes to nature and conservation. So I am really thank you, Prachi, for introducing us to something as amazing as this actually. And now, from whatever you've said, I must say that conservation psychology is such a versatile field. There is so much to do and there's so much to explore, and it's filled with a lot of adventures, honestly.
That's true.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And for all the psychology enthusiasts out there, this is a brilliant opportunity for everyone to explore. It's amazing. And honestly, I'm surprised that conservation psychology is starting out so late, because a couple of decades earlier it would have made such a huge difference. So the beginning right now, I would really like to say thank you to you, to Vivek sir and WCT to take this initiative and begin something like this. It's
Absolutely.
really amazing.
Absolutely. So I think the opportunity that I got, uh, it all, the whole collaboration with the Wildlife Conservation Trust, and of course Vivek sir's uh, mentorship to me. So all of this was very, like, super important and helpful in the whole journey, because I also think that it's important to meet a super supportive mentor and somebody like an organization like WCT to support the sort of work that you want to do. Because I'm pretty sure that if we go and tell somebody that this is what I want to do, not everybody is going to think that it's going to give results. And with social sciences, the uh, outcome or the result that you are producing, or in behavioral change, it's a long process and it's a slow process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically this brings us to the end of yet another episode. Again, thank you so much, Prachi, for joining us, enlightening us and the audience about conservation psychology. Like Monali said, if there are any psychology students watching this, know that this is also an option. You don't have to just go for clinical or industrial. There is a new option called conservation psychology. It's going to help you, it's going to help the future generations. It's for the betterment of the world. If you have any more questions, any queries related to conservation psychology, related to WCT, we will be linking everything in our blog, or whether it's Prachi's contact details, WCT's website, so you can go check that out. They also have a lot of additional information about various different projects and careers and whatnot that you can explore. We will be linking all of that below. Besides that, of course, you guys know that we have our own blog as well. So go check out those articles, go check out our other videos from this series, Let's Discuss, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.